Barrister Emmanuel and I have been working for a number of years here in Nigeria on human rights issues, and this is a sad day, Charles, for human rights in Nigeria. Sunday Jackson, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm a human rights advocate. Sunday Jackson, by anyone's estimation, is totally innocent. And the issue where this man was out farming, minding his own business, and then the attacker came and a struggle ensued. And of course, this man is going to defend himself. That's why we call it self-defense. And yet today, we were at the Nigerian Supreme Court, and it was very brief. It was only about maybe 2 minutes long. And we just wept at the failure of the Nigerian Supreme Court to say that this man, and they had the opportunity to say this man was totally innocent. We haven't seen all the ins and outs of the decision, but we had the opportunity to meet this humble farmer, this young man who unfortunately his wife abandoned him, had been on death row for 10 years. So Sunday Jackson has now become an international case for human rights.
Yes,
and
because
so we're going to continue to advocate.
I was going to ask you what are the international dimensions of this case?
Well, the international dimensions are Open Doors, which is a human rights organization, has recounted that there have been thousands of killings of Christians by Fulanis.
The story of Sunday Jackson is a very heartbreaking one, and it's a pity that Nigerians and other human rights activists are not speaking enough about it. It took a foreigner to come to Nigeria to create awareness, even attended the appeal hearing at the Supreme Court, where they upheld the death penalty against Sunday Jackson. The verdict by the Supreme Court justices shows that most of them are out of touch with the reality in Nigeria. How can anyone, after hearing the story, sentence this man to die by hanging, sentence him to death for defending himself? This verdict also shows how our justices apply justice, their reasoning behind certain decisions. It's very important to understand what murder means. Before you say someone committed murder, you must be able to prove that the person premeditated the murder. He planned about it. He worked towards committing the crime, and eventually he carried it out. When you present all the evidence to prove that he actually committed the crime, then a judge can be convinced to say, yes, this man actually committed murder. But when someone is busy minding his business and another person comes to attack him, you cannot say that he premeditated to kill that person. It is not reasonable at all. The least the prosecutors and the judges could have come up with is maybe manslaughter, because after he was attacked, even wounded, he succeeded in disarming his attacker and stabbed him with a weapon, and later he died of the wounds. So you cannot say that this is murder. How in the world is someone supposed to protect himself? Someone was busy minding his business, someone comes to attack him, succeeded in inflicting serious cuts on him, and in the scuffle, he succeeded in grabbing the machete from him and at the end stabbed him with the machete. How can it be a premeditated murder? The justices didn't even consider what was going on in Sunday Jackson's mind because he was staring death in the face. He had to do everything in his power to save his life. At that moment, he could do anything. He could even grab his own weapon to protect himself. And in the process of protecting himself, if something happens, he never premeditated it because he was busy in his farm, working in his farm, and all of a sudden, someone rushed to him in the farm and immediately started cutting him up. If it wasn't because he quickly recovered despite being seriously bruised and cuts around his arms, he was able to overpower the person, snatch the machete from him and stabbed him with it. So what was he expected to do in this situation? It's a pity the justices, maybe having never been in such a situation in their lives, they denied his appeal. If you ever find yourself in such a situation, staring at death coming at you, your mind quickly switches to survival mode. And survival mode doesn't just mean running away from the threats. No, it also means eliminating that threat if you have the capability. How long are you going to run? Someone that has a machete chasing at you, the person will have that motivation that he has an advantage because he has a weapon. He can chase you as long as he can, even up to a kilometer, because he knows eventually he will be tired and he has a weapon and he will finish off the job. So in this situation, it is wrong, it continues to be wrong till tomorrow, that the justices set a bad precedent by denying his appeal and condemning him to die by hanging, simply because he defended himself. It didn't happen in the street, it happened in his own farm, where he has the right to defend himself. He has the right to stand his ground in his own domain.
Officer, God bless you.
There's no day that will pass by that you will not hear in the news where herdsmen killed a farmer or many farmers at a time. When they do this, they achieve two objectives. Number one, and the most important one why they do it, is because when they eliminate a farmer, most of the farmers own the lands, and because they want to conquer the area, they want to occupy the lands. If they eliminate the farmer, no one will come back and say, this is my land, this is our land, get out of the land. So they target the people farming in the areas. Once they eliminate them, they occupy the areas. In many cases, it has happened many times, they rename the communities to their own names. Yes, it happened in Plateau State when they had serious crisis. Most of the places they eliminated people, all of a sudden they started referring to them in different names. Names that the indigenes never knew about. They've never heard about these names. So this is their number one objective. They want to take over these lands. They eliminate farmers, they occupy the areas, no one will come back. The remaining people, weak people that cannot stand their ground and defend themselves, they run away, they occupy the area, and tomorrow they advance. It's happening, it's not a conspiracy theory. The second objective is to aggravate the food crisis and food inflation we have in Nigeria. The less farmers cultivating their lands, the less food Nigerians have available to eat, and it continues pushing up the price. Because if the demand for rice alone is about 100 bags in a particular city, and the farmers keep decreasing, maybe their output when they were 1,000 farmers was around 100 bags, now that they are 500, they cannot have the same output. So the less food production, the higher the price, and with more people looking for the few goods that are available, it continues going up in price. So there is virtually no one in Nigeria that hasn't heard about herders attacking farmers unprovoked. In some situations, of course, the percentage is quite low, maybe even less than 2%. Some farmers confront the herders when their cattle encroach in their farms and start eating up crops, and they pretend as if they don't see them. In fact, many of them willfully rear their cattle into the farms to eat up people's crops. It has happened many times. When these farmers confront them, they attack them instead of apologizing. Hey, we didn't know it's a farm or something like that. At least apologize and keep going and rear the cattle away from the farms. But no, they are always armed to the teeth. Unlike back in the day, in the 70s, in the 80s, these herders were never armed the way they are armed today to tell you that something is really going on. And the authorities are pretending as if they don't see it. Now that the Supreme Court has denied Sunday Jackson his appeal, it means that no one can defend himself. What this verdict means is that any farmer cannot defend himself against herdsmen who are intent on eliminating them because they want their lands. Yes, that's what it means. This brings us to what is happening in Enugu State. These are women protesting attacks by herdsmen in their community. It has gone on for several weeks now without any solution in sight. The casualties run into the tens and hundreds. They are too graphic to show here, and it's unfortunate that Nigerians don't understand when their lives are at risk, because how in the world can anyone participate in a counter-protest? Can you imagine that the governor or the governor's aides hired people, they hired a crowd to participate in a counter-protest?
At Yamo Fuel issues of local government area of Enugu State. We are here in solidarity with Governor Pekamba, the government of Enugu State. We are accusing some politicians in Yamo as responsible for all the criminal activities going on because of their selfish interests. There's no need for some people to continue to sabotage the effort of the state.
Can you imagine? A governor of a state is the chief security officer of the state. There's no reason for something to happen the first time. There's no solution. The people were not caught. It happens a second time, a third time. It has become a daily affair and a way of life. So the incompetence is so glaring. Instead of spending that time and energy trying to counter their protest, why not use that time and energy to deploy forces around the communities to make sure it never happens again? The Enugu State Governor needs to expand surveillance in these areas, not just in the cities like he did the other time. The greatest way to fight insecurity or crimes is to always respond, always give a chase. The highest motivating factor for criminals and other gangs are the fact that no one responds, no one counters them. How can they attack a community, slaughter people, cause mayhem, burn property, and no one responds? No one gives a chase. No one even tries to find out who they are or survey the area to see, where are they? Where did they run to? What kind of transportation? Did they use this type of vehicle? Where are they? Did they just disappear? The fact that no one did all this, that motivates them to attack again and keep attacking till the entire community runs away and they occupy the area. So they need to do their jobs instead of going to Abuja while their home is burning or trying to form a counter protest to show that the governor is working, that he's alive to his responsibilities. It is better to spend that energy to make sure it never happens again. Thanks for watching.
If all the cattle you consume in the United Kingdom, you see them on the streets of United Kingdom or England, nobody sees these things on the road. It's only here that we can stay, and every morning herders will invade a community, kill 30 persons, touch the houses, burn their properties, displace them, and we have no solution to it. Nigeria should be planning on how to put an end to this scourge of herders displacing people in their ancestral homes, because they bring their cattle down, move into people's ancestral lands when they are sleeping. They kill them, burn their houses, and we get this report continuously, and these herders are still moving around. So we must put a stop to it. Let us find a way of putting a stop to it, even by legislation. We should ban migrant grazing. If we put a law and ban it, anybody who is moving with a cattle, 20, 30, 40, is running foul of the law on the road. How much more into people's farm?